Warhammer. This is a series that's all over the place in terms of video games. Some are good, and some are mediocre. There have been 3 Warhammer games I have ever played in my life. Not one Warhammer game I've seen online has ever interested me because usually the gameplay of these games looks boring to me. But, and this is a big but, there is one game that I think is the best Warhammer game I ever played, and I think there will never ever be one like it. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. Warhammer 40k Space Marine is a third-person hack-and-slash shooter published by THQ, now Sega, and developed by Relic Entertainment, a Canadian game studio that made games such as Company of Heroes 1 and 2, Homeworld 1 and 2, and The Outfit, and are no strangers to the Warhammer IP as they created Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 1, 2, and 3. There's not much known about the development of this game other than the fact that Relic recruited people who developed games like Gears of War, God of War, and Far Cry to make this game. While I don't know much about development, I will say this: Warhammer 40k Space Marine is the best Warhammer game I ever played. Given that Relic was mostly known for real-time strategy games, this is the perfect example of a game that takes its own risks, stepping down from the established Warhammer formula in favor of making something new, creative, and most importantly fun. I think there will never ever be a game like this, and today I want to tell you why. So the question is, will there ever be a Warhammer game like Space Marine? If not, then why not? Prepare to drop to the surface. This is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. So the game takes place on the Imperial Forge world Graia in the event of an orc invasion led by one warboss Brinstar. The orcs have taken over the Manufactorum Ajax and are after the Titan Invictus. You partake in the role of Titus, captain of the Ultramarines, accompanied by seasoned veteran Sidonus and novice rookie Leandros. With the help of the Imperial Guard's second Lieutenant Mira, it's up to Titus to repel the orc invasion and save Graia, all while mercilessly slicing and shooting his way through hundreds and hundreds of orcs. The main mission of the game is made apparent even in the tutorial level: destroy all orcs. The story is an alien invader kind of story where you play as humanity's last hope, but the story is greatly progressed with interactions between Titus and his associates. I like the story of Warhammer 40k Space Marine because it portrays the titular Space Marines as the good guys instead of the crazy, xenophobic, over-religious maniacs that are always portrayed in other media and in lore. This paints a heroic look on the Space Marines, and the interactions between the Space Marines and the other characters paints them as the equivalent of Superman. I wish this kind of storytelling was used in other Warhammer games to add in a bit of heroism, but this game isn't wholly without the presentation. Speaking on a graphical level, Warhammer 40k Space Marine looks pretty solid. Graia has this warlike, dry, almost desert-like environment and fits the war aesthetic of 40k. Some of my favorite places of the game has to be this hallway and the orbital spire. The hallway looks incredible and looks like something out of a giant cathedral, while the warp spire with its crumbling platforms and being high above the ground is outright stunning. And I always like the idea of the final level being a crumbling mess. It feels like a last war of hope. The models also look good. The faces of the characters like the Space Marines, Grimskull, and Drogon have these fine details like scars and bolts embedded into their skulls. It gives them a warlike look and makes them fit in the 40k universe. Though my issue with these models is that the textures like the armor on the Space Marines are slowly starting to show their age. But I'd say visually, this game almost ages about as well as Exotic Butters. Not to mention that the game's animation is good. My favorite animation has to be this glory kill you use with a power axe against the big orc. I like how the orc is trying to kill you while you are killing him. It's a really great animation. Though speaking on the technical side of things, there is one big technical issue with Warhammer Space Marine: the executions. The executions look cool, but the problem is that when you do them on corners or on higher grounds, they glitch out and they don't come into sync with each other. Here are a few examples. Overall, however, this issue is pretty minor. I also like how when you die, a random quote plays detailing the duties of a Space Marine. Space Marine also has a really great sense of sound design. The gun sound effects especially are the epitome of this design. They didn't use a bunch of stock gun sound effects, they made their own sound effects and put them onto the guns, and when you're out of ammo, the shooting sound gets higher pitched. I think my favorite sound in the game has to go to the chainsword, because whenever you slash it into enemy orcs, you can hear it slicing into the enemy's guts. You fucking feel it! On the music side, I will say this. The music is okay, but it's quite unmemorable. The music was composed by Chris Velasco and Sasha Dikichian. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. Velasco has a pretty huge gaming resume, composing games like God of War 1, 2, and 3, Darksiders 1 and 3, StarCraft 2, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Mortal Kombat 9, Borderlands 1 and 2, Mass Effect 3, Zombie U, Bloodborne, Overwatch, Injustice, and even Resident Evil 7. The music is comprised of warlike and heroic tunes, and a lot of it is pretty unmemorable. By that I mean I ignored the music because I was fighting orcs and it all came off as background noise. One thing that didn't come off as background noise is the voice acting, and it's pretty good. The Warhammer series has always been distinctly British, and this bleeds into the voice acting. This game features Mark Strong as Titus, an English actor well known for his roles as Prince Septimus in Stardust, Henry Blackwood in Sherlock Holmes, Frank D'Amico in Kick-Ass, and Dr. Thaddeus Savannah in Shazam. He gives off this sort of war veteran kind of voice, and it's pretty good.
Your days as a novice are behind you. Why do you still interpret the Codex so narrowly?
I look to its rules for guidance.
We all do. But there are also benefits to thinking for yourself, Davis.
Usually when it comes to voice acting in the 40k universe, a lot of the praise goes to the orcs because of their Cockney accents. And Grimskull is no exception, voiced by Neil Maskell, who appeared in a few British films such as The Football Factory and Kill List, and he gives Grimskull the perfect voice and he doesn't bore you with his monologuing.
You're trying to steal my Titans? Steal my loot? I'll rip your guts right out your throat!
I should also give credit to Mark Lewis-Jones as the villain Nemeroth. Jones is a Welsh actor who played characters like Captain Moden Kennedy in Star Wars The Last Jedi, as well as a few minor roles in British films. Nemeroth has this echoey, sinister voice, and it's top-notch.
You think the Inquisitor a traitor, but Drogon has been dead since before you first met. You have been used by my puppet of flesh and bone.
I will say this, even when playing on easy mode, this game gets difficult, especially when you're cornered by multiple enemies. So overall, Warhammer 40k Space Marine hits all the points to be a presentable game. The levels look like they fit the Warhammer world, the games look age well, and the voice acting is nice in spite of the game's slowly aging textures, unmemorable music, and technical problems. But when it comes to the gameplay, it's a whole new beast entirely. Warhammer 40k Space Marine plays out as a third-person hack-and-slash shooter, a mix between the shooting of games like Call of Duty along with the hack-and-slash and multi-enemy gameplay of games like God of War and Dynasty Warriors. The game is so focused on action that there's barely anything else in the game. Very few platforming, no puzzles, no mini-games, nothing, just complete action. I should go over the melee because it's the one thing this game is remembered for and probably the most fun thing in the game. Seriously, I spent the majority of the game hacking enemies then shooting them. You start out initially with a combat knife which comes with just 3 hits, but as you later play the game you progress to a chainsword, a power axe, and a thunder hammer. The chainsword is agile and can cut multiple hordes, the power axe is less agile than the chainsword but is a heavy hitter, and the thunder hammer hits like a truck. All of these weapons can be comboed to stun your enemies, and when they are stunned, that's your chance to execute them. You can also stun them by dashing into them. I should also mention the jump pack because the jump pack is used 3 times in the game and acts as an excuse to add in platforming. You can jump high by holding the jump button, and you can use the stun button to power drop. You also get Fury later in the game, which is a full-on rage mode that heals you and makes you hit harder. It'll also allow you to instantly KO enemies. You later upgrade it throughout the game, and it also enables you to shoot in slow motion. The game also has a lot of these servo skulls throughout the game. What they do is they act like audio logs, giving you insight into other characters. They serve no purpose and there's no 100% reward for collecting all of them, so you shouldn't even bother. Then you have the shooting gameplay. There are a total of 11 ranged weapons throughout the campaign. The bolter pistol, the plasma pistol, the bolter, the stalker bolter, the melta-gun, the plasma gun, the vengeance launcher, the heavy bolter, the plasma cannon, the storm bolter, and the las cannon. The bolter pistol is a generic pistol weapon, while the plasma pistol is a one-shot charger weapon where you can charge it up to get a powerful shot. The bolter is the one gun you'll be using throughout the game. It functions like an AK-47 as a rapid-fire weapon. You later upgrade to a Kraken bolter, which makes it more powerful. The Stalker bolter is one of the best weapons in the game, and it functions like a sniper rifle and kills enemies with one shot and a headshot. The melta gun is a flame blaster and can burn enemies. The plasma gun, much like the plasma pistol, can be charged up to unleash a powerful shot. The vengeance launcher is another good weapon, and it works like a sticky grenade launcher. You can launch them at enemies and you can detonate them once they are attached. The heavy bolter and the plasma cannon are stationary turret weapons which you can use either standing still or you can pull them off their stations and walk around shooting them. They are encountered throughout the game and you don't get to keep them. The storm bolter you get later in the game and it functions like the heavy's machine gun from TF2. It has an extremely rapid fire that is only good when up close to enemies. And finally, the las cannon, the equivalent of the BFG from Doom. It's so powerful that it can kill enemies in 2 to 1 shot. And speaking of enemies, there's no good of a transition than that. The orcs are one of the main enemies you will be facing throughout the game, and they come with 11 different enemy types. Gretchen, boys, shooters, big boys, big shooters, rocket shooters, scar boys, ard boys, weird boys, and explosive squigs. The Gretchen are small enemy units and can be one-shotted with the execute button. However, if a lot come after you, they can become a nuisance. The boys are the standard enemy units that are the most encountered, while the shooters are the oft encountered range units, and if you come up close to them, they will hit you with their gun, melee style. The big boys and big shooters are tough as nails versions of the boys and shooters, and they can be engaged in a stun lock where you gotta mash the stun button to kill them. You also have to use combos in order to stun them. The big boys also have an elite armored variant which is harder to kill. The rocket shooters launch rockets at you, and I think they are used in one level, but I could be wrong. The Scar Boys are more vicious versions of the usual boys, and the Ard Boys have shields and they can only be attacked from behind. I also like the way you kill them with their shield. Finally, the Weird Boys are the only psychers in the orc armies. They can summon other orcs after you, and they can block your passive aggression, which means you have to kill them to progress. Lastly, the explosive squigs are kamikaze units, and they can be cleverly used against the orcs if you shoot them early. They also make a distinct howl noise when far away, so be aware of that. I forgot to mention the Storm Boys, and I should go over them a bit. The Storm Boys are a flying unit, and they're only used in one segment in the game. Unfortunately for Space Marine, there's not really a lot of bosses in the game. There's only 2. The first you fight is Grimskull. All he does is just charge at you and shoot bullets at you, later grenades, and rockets. He'll also summon his fellow orcs and later kamikaze squigs. Just keep shooting him with all your weapons, or you can go full melee on him and then he'll die. I should also mention that this game has multiplayer, which I'm surprised considering how old this game is. You play as both the Imperium and Chaos, and there are 5 multiplayer modes: Siege Ground, Annihilation, Capture the Flag, Capture and Control, and Dreadnought Assault. Siege Ground plays out like Arathi Basin in World of Warcraft, in which you defend 3 points from enemies. Annihilation is a full-on battle in which you need to reach 41 kills, and Capture the Flag and Capture Control are exactly what they sound like. Dreadnought Assault is where you fight for command of a dreadnought and then you use it to assault control points. This is the only mode available via DLC. I was only able to record Siege Ground, which is the majority of the footage you're looking at now. As a matter of fact, this game has downloadable content, most of which is all cosmetics, and it sells the Dreadnought mode. Not to mention Exterminatus, which is full-on horde mode against enemies. You can also customize your own Space Marine and Chaos Marine. I was only able to play Siege Ground, which is the majority of the footage you are seeing of my multiplayer experience. So I dare say that Warhammer 40k Space Marine is exactly what any other Warhammer game should be like. Full, fun action. This game is fun and you don't feel tired while playing it. It's amazing. Now we blast off into finale atmosphere. Usually I don't go over the midway point of a game when discussing the finale, but I feel like I should since it is important to the story. So about near the midway point of the game, you meet up with an Inquisitor named Drogon. With this help, you travel deep into Graia and find a small warp device. According to Drogon, the device can be used against the Orc incursion, and so Titus takes the device, but Leandros later accuses him of being corrupted thanks to withstanding the device's touch. More on that later. But of course the other Marines don't believe him. The Space Marines use the device to power a bigger device to use against the Orcs, but it doesn't work. What it does instead is bring forth the real antagonists, the forces of Chaos and their leader, a Chaos Lord named Nemeroth, who Drogon has been working for all along. Actually no, Drogon was dead all along and the Drogon you follow was possessed puppet working for Nemeroth. Nemeroth's goal this time is to bring the Chaos Gods into Graia and ascend into a Prince of Chaos. He attempts to suck the life out of Titus, but he is stopped by Grimskull. Now the majority of the game is you fighting the forces of Chaos, and they come with 5 enemy types: Chaos Demons, Chaos Marines, Chaos Soldiers, Chaos Psychers, and Chaos Drones. Chaos Demons play out like the Orc Boys being the standard melee unit, while the Chaos Marines play out like the Space Marines themselves. They come with a rage weapon and a melee weapon, and there are 3 variants of them. One comes with a plasma gun, the other comes with a Chaos Bolter and a chainsaw axe, and the last one comes with a Chaos Hammer. The Chaos Soldiers are ranged units, and they kind of function like the Gretchen in that you can kill them with one shot. Chaos Psychers on the other hand function like the Weird Boys in that they're able to summon hordes of enemies while also utilizing magic projectiles. Finally, the Chaos Drones are the only flying enemies you'll see in the game that aren't stationed in a shooting segment. Titus has a plan to destroy the Orbital Spire, where Nemeroth plans to bring the Chaos Gods to Graia. His plan is to utilize the Titan Invictus to destroy the Spire. So they head back and use the Titan with a little help from the small device, and it worked. He then hands the device to Sidonis to keep it safe. Unfortunately, it doesn't end so well for Sidonis as he is killed off by Nemeroth, and Nemeroth takes the device. Titus leaves Leandros and decides to go after Nemeroth himself. He then meets up with a few Blood Ravens and some fellow Ultramarines, and so with their help, Titus heads to the ruined Orbital Spire and travels up, ready for the final battle. The final boss is a 2-phase battle against Nemeroth, and to be honest, it actually sucks. The first phase is just you fighting a swarm of chaos forces. You don't even get to hit Nemeroth until the second phase where he ascends into demonhood and you throw him off the spire. This second phase is a freefall fight where you have to get up to Nemeroth and bash your controller to hit him. Nemeroth will try to hurt you when you do this, so make sure you press that dodge button. He'll also try to put you into a chokehold, so get ready. Repeat this long enough and Titus will bash his skull in and use the warp device to escape the fall. This is probably the worst boss fight in the game, and how I could change it is make the second phase a hands-on fight against Nemeroth's demon form with your bolters and shit. After saving the planet, Titus emerges wounded and he is stopped by Leandros and Inquisitor Thrax. Remember Leandros' accusations earlier? Well, Leandros actually reported to the authorities of Titus' corruption. Titus attempts to talk his way out of it, but it's of no use. And so, with no other choice, Titus says his farewell to Leandros and turns himself in to the High Court. The end. Allow me to stress to you, the viewer, that there will never ever be a Warhammer game like Warhammer 40k Space Marine. With its great story, good voice acting, and incredible gameplay, in spite of its slowly aging textures and technical issues, Space Marine holds its ground as the best Warhammer game I've played. And there are 2 other Warhammer games I played that I consider fun: Blood Bowl 2 and Warhammer Online Return of Reckoning. Blood Bowl 2 was innovative and was all about taking strategic risks. Warhammer Online, while it was a good blast in the past, it got boring after a while. And then there is Space Marine, a game that took its own risks to make something new, original, and most importantly, fun. This game is fun, and why the hell isn't there a game like this? Hell, I'll even take a version of this set in the fantasy universe. Well, there were actually 2 sequels to this game planned, but were cancelled after THQ's closure. So you know what? Here's my idea for a Warhammer game inspired by Space Marine. Number 1. Make more factions playable. You mostly played as the humans in Space Marines, Chaos and multiplayer, so why not make any of the other factions playable, like the Orcs, the Necrons, the Eldar, or even the Tau? Actually, scratch that, nobody likes the Tau. Number 2. Make it play out like Space Marine. Make the game play out like a third-person hack-and-slash shooter. There was one 40k game that tried to play like Space Marine called Eternal Crusade, and it failed exponentially. So make it play out truthfully like Space Marine and have each of the factions have unique weapons to better differentiate them from each other. And 3. Make each faction have their own story. Each faction should have their unique story with different levels, bosses, collectibles, etc. Like the Orc story can have you rise from the ranks from a knob to become a war boss, or the Eldar in a war against the Tau, or an Imperial Space Marine traveling into the warp to fight Khorne. And please portray the Space Marines like they are in Space Marine. Let there be heroic light in this dark universe. No matter how hard developers try, there will simply never ever be a Warhammer game like Space Marine. This game is the best of its kind. This game gets a Space Marine out of the Emperor. or in other words, an 8.8 out of 10. Definitely give it a try.